Tremblant.
Oh, good. So if you can get to Trumbull,
Then
Yeah,
that's
that's us.
yeah. How about you? Stick around.
Yeah, we're not going to Saturday. No, we're going to go in February instead.
Oh,
13
okay.
minutes break from there. My daughter wants to go to instead, so like over.
Okay.
But yeah, Collingwood skiing.
Okay. Okay. So Collingwood ski. We have when we're in Barrie, I think we're gonna go to Mount Louis. I said Louis.
Oh, nice.
We never done it before.
Drove by there on Monday and they were all over the hills. We said we never ski on Monday. So shitty. As soon as they saw that snow,
They're going out.
Dude, that- Last one.
Yeah.
Okay, see that? I thought I didn't get an update. I think it's perfect. Oh, I know. I know.
well, it's not in the health.
Matthew, is anybody online?
Yes.
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to bring this police board meeting, Greater Sudbury Police Service Board meeting to order at 10 after 10 on Wednesday, December 11th. Thank you all for attending. Welcome, Mr. Clark. He's here always. Before we start, we have our agenda in front of us. I'm going to reorder the agenda slightly. Other than Matthew, can we please do the roll call?
Chair Sizer.
Present.
Thank you. Vice Chair Lougheed.
Present.
Thank you. Member Forte. Member Lefebvre.
Present.
Member Poland.
Present.
Thank you. Chief Cunningham.
Present.
And Deputy Chief Hilton. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any declarations of conflict of interest? Seeing or hearing none, we can proceed. I want to acknowledge and respect the caretakers and stewards of this land since time immemorial, the Anishinaabe people. I further want to acknowledge this region as the Robinson Huron Treaty region. Matters arising from our in-camera session, Matthew?
At today's closed meeting, the board dealt with the following matters, discussing and approving confidential matters pursuant to section 44.2 of the CSPA.
Thank you. Okay, we can now move forward to our number 6, our consent agenda. There are 6.1 to 6.8 in the consent agenda. Is there anything there that the board would like? Member Poland.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just one item. Matthew, with regards to the fall conference, appreciate the report. If there's any follow-up presentations that you could share with the board, I'd certainly love to get a look at those, having been unable to attend.
Yes, I'm just waiting for them to be posted on the OAPSB website. As soon as they're available, I will share with the board
Excellent.
for your review.
Thank you.
Chair,
Yes,
Chair,
Mr. Light.
through you, perhaps to the chief or deputy chief, page 5, with regard to staffing deployment update. And I guess my question is, are we on target for the full 25 people, as in the new people, as opposed to just the replacement of attrition people? I tried to do it. I'm not sure what's going on.
Oh, it's on, Jerry. It's on Member Lougheed automatically.
It does.
Just have to get closer to it, that's all.
Closer to yourself.
There we go.
Yes, through you, Chair Sizer. So in 2023, the net new 10 were hired. In 2024, those net new 10 have been hired, and we are on target to hire the 10 for 2025. As you know, we will hire 10 in the first half of the year. 5 in the first half of the year, and 5 are approved from July to December. So those will be the 30 net new that the board approved in our previous budget.
In the net new is net new. So we've plus the attrition people on top of that 30.
Correct. Yeah. We're always looking to replace those retiring or leaving for other reasons.
Member,
And
go ahead.
through you, Chair, with regard to the 2 forensic specialists, just interested to know where that pool is coming from. Is that Laurentian University? Is that elsewhere? Because my understanding was that's not sworn officers. These would be special people for forensic examinations.
Correct. Through you, Chair Sizer. They are. We went and did an environmental scan throughout the province. There's many police services utilizing forensic specialists. They will be sworn in as special constables because it allows them to duties under the Act to go to scenes and that type of stuff. Holly Bilodeau, our manager, has worked with Deputy Hiltz and her team to get the job description posted. We will post internally first as per our collective agreement. We do have members on our police professional side that have taken this course that may be interested, and then we will go out and post it external should we be required.
Last point, through you, Chair, to the chief, then when will these folks be working?
They will be starting, the job description is ready. I believe we're ready to post it. Should be this week or next, and hopefully early in January, because they are authorized to be hired in January of 2025.
Thank you. Thanks. All right, if nothing further, then we can move forward to our discussion agenda. Reports. The first one on that is our fee schedule and is an action for approval. And that, Chief.
Yeah, so through your Chair Sizer, just some highlights here. You'll note our manager of information management has put this forward for us. You will see our current situation. We are going to remove some fees, and we highlight fingerprinting services. Removing this, civil fingerprints are no longer going to be required to be completed by us. Digital recordings, as you know, we are modernizing, and the Greater Sudbury Police Service will no longer provide digital recordings on DVDs. This will be an obsolete, feature that we currently do. And then lastly, the motor vehicle collision report. We used to go out to every scene and actually take these. As you know, we have the collision reporting center. Everything now is done electronically, so there is no back section any longer. So we'll remove that fee. So removing those 3 fees, we will have a reduction in fees for service. So in alignment with some federal initiatives, and we're going to, the record suspension check to align with the fee of employment-related record checks for individuals who are looking for a criminal record or a record suspension. So we will alter that. And lastly, again, we've talked a lot about body-worn cameras, in-car camera footage. We're going to be adding those, or asking that we add those fees, and you'll see that on the next page, 21, rounding out all those fees. So the Greater Sudbury Police Service has advised that a 3% fee adjustment will apply for the 2025 schedule, and you'll see that all fees have been rounded to facilitate the exchange of money. We're asking that most of this stuff be done online, and I know we're pushing this out a lot through our social media. It's streamlined. People can go online, and everything is secure there. We have that through a contract, and so this is just updating our bylaws, and you'll see on page 5 what the fee schedule will look like. So subject to any questions.
Member Lougheed.
Chair, through to you, to the chief, with regard to back to page 21. I'm assuming, I wrote a little note where it said paid duty cruiser fee per hour, which is $34.64, and it's going to go up to $39.14. That seemed to be the deal on the whole page. So they get a car for $40 an hour?
Through paid duty, yes.
But no, I mean, the people are paying for $40 for a car. Those cars are worth what? $150,000?
Well, with it comes an officer, and as you'll see from the write-up here, that fee is set out as per our collective bargaining.
Yeah.
So, lots of times they just ask for the officer and not the cruiser, but yes, that's correct. Those prices are correct.
Okay, as somebody who actually engages people in our community livery services to rent limousines, for example, I'm paying in excess of $400 for a limousine for an hour and a half and a driver. So it just seemed to me that the cars seemed to be out of step with regard to what you're providing for people. I realize it's transportation for the officer, but the officer is the HR piece. The car is something which is a fixed expense to us. You're paying gasoline or depreciation or insurance. I just think that should be higher. That's my 2 cents.
Thanks, Jerry. I think, I remember, Lahid, that's something that we can take under consideration. We could review on that one. You're right, there is an hourly rate that is charged back from fleet services for a cruiser. I don't know what that is per hour, but we should look into that and see, adjust if necessary. And that- Member Forte, did you have something further? No, okay, thank you. Yep, we've got a motion on that one, please.
Yeah. That the Greater Sudbury Police Service Board approves the amendments to Schedule A of Bylaw 2009-3 as attached, increasing fees currently charged for services by 3% effective January 1, 2025. And further, that the fee schedule be amended to remove the following fees in the schedule: digital fingerprints, recordings, MVCR. And further, that the fee schedule be amended to reduce the following fee in the schedule: record suspension, local police record check from $72 to $43. And further, that the fee schedule be amended to add the following fee in the schedule: body worn camera / in-car camera video footage for $75. And further, that these amendments also include the changes to the paid duty rates in accordance with the bylaw and shall be adjusted at such times rates are negotiated with the Sudbury Police Association.
All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you. 7.2 on our, the board present, 2025 board presentation discussion has
Yeah.
been looked. Go ahead, Chief.
Through you, Chair Sizer. Just some discussion points here for the board. Our, police professionals and our officers are happy to come, generally on a monthly basis and provide some presentation to the board. You'll see that we've highlighted to this board some of the presentation topics that we've already done this past year. As we come into 2025, I'm wanting to have a discussion on some topics that the board might want us to present on. That gives us the ability to get the right person or persons to come forward. It gives us time to make those presentations. As you can imagine, our staff take pride in the work they do and want to come forward and present a professional presentation to the board. And so we are looking to look to see if there's anything that the board wants to see in 2025. Happy just to have it, a month or two in advance. But if we could ask today that if there's something, we can then prepare for you. And I know we have a small presentation today by Inspector DePotze on our case management disclosure unit. And so after we have this discussion, he's happy to come up and make his presentation on that.
Thank you, Chief. So that leads me into 7.3, our verbal report back on the new case. Oh, sorry, Member Lahid. Sorry.
Through you, Chair, to Sarah. First off, I'd like to commend the presenters up till now. I think they've been excellent presentations. I especially would again single out Officer Mark Savignac with regard to what happened last month with the body armor. I thought that was excellent. I know we have media with us today, and I thought they covered that story very well, and it brought that information to the community. I think there's been great feedback in the community, knowing we're on that cutting edge, that 30 people, I guess, this month are going to start wearing them. That whole issue about you take the gun out of the holster, all the other cops' cameras come on. There was a lot of really good information. So kudos to the presentations. If we're asking for requests today, Chief, I would like to suggest in 2025 court process would be something I think as a board we'd like to know about, only with regard to the bail reform issues with the state charges being stayed and being thrown out because they're not being processed in time, and that the officers do a good job arresting people, and sometimes the court system doesn't seem to support that arrest. So I would very much like in 2025, I don't know much time you need, Chief, but the court process, what we do and when do we stop doing it?
Duly noted.
Anybody else?
Anything further on that one? All right, thank you. So Inspector DePazzi.
And not
Inspector, if
online.
you go to the podium,
Yeah, you have to go to the podium, sorry.
Is there no mic there?
Just you.
Can you raise the podium?
Oh, hold on.
You can, there's a piton to raise a.
There's a piton. That piton?
Piton,
There's a piton?
the piton. He knows, he understands what I'm saying there. He understands what I'm telling him. Talking to him, not you guys.
You're talking.
Oh God.
Il y a piton, là.
Oui, oui, je vois ça, là. Un piton ici, là.
See, you understand what I'm saying, though.
How's the volume right now?
We can hear.
Good?
we can
Everything's
hear.
good?
Okay.
Okay, perfect. So no formal presentation today. But I know there were some questions at the last board meeting, which I was unable to attend. I was on annual leave doing some deer hunting. And so I heard there were some questions with regards to our case management and disclosure unit. And so we're 3 weeks in. So we launched it at the, mid to late November. So we're 3 weeks in. So in speaking with the deputy and the chief leading it up to this, I think, next year, 2025, at some point, 6 months or so in, we'll have some successes to speak about and some of that stuff as we're still really in the training phase. We did some extensive training with that. However, maybe I can just kind of set the stage for where we're at with that and what the goals are. And that will, maybe answer some of the questions from last week. And so why are we here? And you just touched on it, Vice Chair Lougheed. The police and the Crown work in partnership. And we have responsibilities and they have responsibilities. And our big responsibility, obviously, is to investigate crime and bring people before the court, right? And then the Crown takes it from there. And so what I can tell you is in the past 3 years or so, just over 4,000 times a year, we have cases that go there. And so there's a lot of variables. I'm not saying that's how many people were arrested. I'm not saying that's how many warrants were handed in, nothing like that. What I'm saying is we've brought about 13,000 cases to the court in the past 3 years. So it's just over 4,000 a year, right? And so that's number one, why we're here. Number two is the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, right? So that explains, what our responsibility is as police. And then really the big one is Stinchcombe legislation or case law, right? That speaks to disclosure requirements, timely and fulsome disclosure that the police have to bring forward to the Crown, that the Crown has to bring forward to the defense. So that's why we're talking about a case management and disclosure unit, right? And so what's changed with regards to that? About a year ago, so in November of 2023, coming out of COVID, right? So the MAG, police, the judiciary, everybody realized there's a lot of cases that were held back, right? And queued, so to speak. And so the Ontario Court of Justice came through with 3 distinct recommendations to the judiciary related to disclosure and specifically to R versus Jordan, which is kind of a standout case when it comes to disclosure, right? And so they changed, that changed the game a little bit. And so number one is from the time the information is sworn to, so you need to understand when we talk about this, that the post-charge ecosystem is very complex. And even, our officers who haven't had dealings with this sometimes don't understand it. So after we lay a charge and we put in our paperwork, for lack of better terms, it's very complex what happens and how that flows through the judicial system. And so number one direction is from the time that information is sworn to, the trial must be complete within 15 months. That's number one thing that changed last November. The second is from the time the information is sworn to the time there's some other form of resolution or there's a trial date set. you got 6 months. Okay. And then the third thing that changed is the transitional cases. We just talked about the cases that were queued up before that. So there's still some cases within the court system from 2019, 2020, 2022. And so what the judiciary said is they're trying to get those done in a 15-month period as well. Right. And a lot of that has not been achieved. And so what we know, right, based on our experience and now what's changed, we know that everybody's got a right to disclosure, right? We know that we have to give full disclosure, and it's critical for all parties involved. Defense needs to know, prosecution needs to know, in order to come up with a good idea of what next steps may be, right? In order to prepare your case or even decide that you're going to resolve something. And what we also know that prosecution, it could be fatal to prosecutions if that disclosure is not in place, right? The judiciary has and will say, that's it. This is, we're staying these charges, right? And so what are we doing about it? And how are we being proactive with regards to that? And so here locally, we've stood up now what's called a case management disclosure unit through our courts system and through our courts section, right? And really it's about ensuring we get that substantive disclosure to the Crown, right? In a complete, timely, and accurate fashion, right? And so how we're doing that is through taskings, checklists, and really through leveraging the work of our frontline supervisors to ensure that gets done. And so that all goes to our case management and disclosure unit. And so for a lack of better terms, they are the final set of eyes before we push our disclosure to the Crown's office. They're also our first set of eyes if there are issues with the case. The Crown is going to push that through them, and then we'll be able to direct the traffic, so to speak, with regards to that, and ensure we get the Crown what they need. And so it's that last bit of oversight that we haven't had previously to ensure we get that accurate, timely, complete disclosure to the Crown. And so if we do that work at the front end, then we don't have to do it at the back end, where if we're missing something and then the Crown is requesting something and they're coming back to us through our officers, our frontline officers, our investigators, people that have now new cases to do. And you can see how that might bog down the system. And we've had no way in the past of quantifying how much money or how much time that cost us. And so this is about getting that substantive disclosure, as much of that disclosure to the Crown in a timely fashion at the front end. And that's what our case management disclosure unit task is. And we're working through it right now. And we've had some good feedback from our supervisor and our officers. And we look forward to what that's going to look like 6 months and a year down the road. And I must say that locally here, and you need to know this as our police board, our relationship with the Crown Attorney's Office is phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. We work with them in lockstep, and they're aware of the work we're doing, and they've been involved in helping us out. And they're also doing some stuff on their end to ensure they hold up their end of the bargain when it comes to disclosure.
Questions? Member Forte?
You, Chair. I like your analogy to
Microphone, yeah.
a legal ecosystem. It very much is. Is it a specific unit as well?
Yeah. So what we have is we have some officers that are not able to be deployed at the front line.
Okay.
So they've been retasked with doing this, and we also have some civilians working within that unit. And so it's a team working out of the courts section, and we have a sergeant over there, and we have a staff sergeant over there, and they're overseeing that on a day-to-day basis.
How big is the unit?
We have 3 officers and 1 civilian, and then 1 civilian, I would say part-time. So, 3 to 4 officers. You have to understand, we just started this. We've never had this before. So at the end of the day, how much work is there and that kind of stuff. So this is what we thought, with the data and evidence we had, the number of cases, the number of requests we've had from the Crown over the years for some follow-up tasks. So, and I believe we've got the commitment through the chief's office, to be really nimble that way. So if we need to upsize it, then we'll do that. And we need to downsize it, then we'll do that as well.
No, great information. Thank you. It's a
You're welcome.
very important process.
Anything further for Inspector DePazzi? No, thank you very much, Inspector, for that report.
Thank you.
Presentation.
We look forward to hearing from you on court process.
Yeah.
All right. Next item on our agenda is the finance reports, and we have a request for the Donations Reserve Trust Fund. Chief?
Through you, Chair Sizer. This is an annual crest from our ladies hockey team, the Sudbury Cruisers. This has been a longstanding team here at GSPS, one in which Deputy Hiltz and I have both participated in. And what our female officers do is they go and have some games with local high school teams. And I think Confederation last year had a buyout. They had the whole school there, and it was great. And what we do post the game is bring, the players into the dressing room, and we talk about policing, and hopefully it's some recruitment, and we get to see some future GSPS members because we're always recruiting not only for officers but the hockey team. And so again, looking to fund them through $500, as well as they go and play in tournaments in the province. So they're looking for a donation again this year of $500, which again I would support.
Any questions? Matthew?
That the board approve the following donation with funds drawn from the Donations Reserve Trust Fund, $500 in support of the GSPS Ladies Hockey Team, Sudbury Cruisers.
All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you. Now we will get on to our report from the chief. Chief?
And Deputy Hiltz.
Yeah, that's all right. Fine, Deputy. I knew that. I didn't want to make sure that we were directing it the right way. Go ahead, Deputy Hills. Thank you.
It's all good. Thank you, Chair. So we're going to start with the operational updates, and we will just pause in between each section so that
Not-
Member
not-
Lougheed.
Not to be a pain to you, Deputy Chief, through you, Chair, I just need a little enlightenment to what commissions under the Great Seal King Commission is the next step. I didn't understand what that was. So I just seek, before you start your reports, I'm not sure what the King's Seal is, and is this a good thing to be sealed by the King?
So through you, Chair Sizer, Matthew puts in these ministry updates. We receive ministry updates almost daily, to be honest. And I think Matthew pulls some of them to highlight for you as board members. I see this one here. I don't know if it would be even relative to us. It says that it's for Ontario provincial police officers only. So I'm just reading it here because
But I didn't know what it was. I read the stuff, but it doesn't
I don't
define.
know either.
If I may, through you, Chair, and the Chief, I myself read through this and I found it particularly interesting. I did try to find more information online before the board today because I was also intrigued, and I couldn't find a detailed, definitive answer. It talks about what it is,
Yeah.
but not exactly
What it-
like the purpose, value
Yeah.
of in detail. So I'm still looking for an answer on that myself, and I'd be happy to report that. I just wasn't able to find a detailed explanation that I understood, but it has it obviously has some weight and importance in the province. It has been expanded from the Ontario Provincial Police and extended to the municipalities and as well as First Nations policing. But again, the intricate details of exactly the substance of that I have yet to track down, and I'd be happy to share that
Sure.
when I get it.
Thank you.
Good question.
Sorry, Deputy, go on. As I said, was it a secret society or what it was? I was no idea. Sorry.
When I find that out, I will definitely share. Again, not seeing too many things with King's
Deal.
commission, so just as interested. So I will share that when I'm able to get that. So we're going to move on to chief's report, and recognizing there's a need to take a breath in between some of these operational updates. Taking Member Lougheed's cue from last month's, what I will do is I will pause to be able to give the members here at the table a chance to ask pertinent questions before we move on to the next section, if that's okay through you, Chair.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So we're going to start with specialized operations. And as you can see, Inspector Dan DePazzi, who gave a fantastic presentation on some of the work that he's doing within specialized operations. We have participated, our officers are participating in several community events and supporting, our community stakeholders in several events across Greater Sudbury. You can see there's a list there, quite busy, and our officers are boots to the ground in participating, supporting, and attending those events. Just to highlight Santa Claus Parade, obviously a very big event for Greater Sudbury. We have tremendous operational deployments to support that event year after year. And again, that a lot of those officers are not only in patrol ops, which is represented here today, but also across all divisions, especially to specialized operations. If we go to the bail compliance warrant apprehension program, it gives you a breakdown of our activity. Again, we're reporting month to month, and you can see that the work within bail compliance warrant apprehension program is quite consistent. We have in the month of December, that will be reported in our next meeting. I've just conducted a blitz, and that is so that we can get out on the road and during the month of December and do further work and enforcement work in this very, very important area within policing. And again, as Greater Sudbury Police, as with other agencies and concerned members throughout the province, public safety is our number one priority, and making sure that offenders that are not compliant with bail conditions, that they are held accountable. And again, our team under Dan DePazzi's area are doing tremendous work in this area, and they'll continue to do that through the remainder of the year into the next year. Court section, I don't think I'm going to get into too much detail on that, given that we had a really great presentation by Inspector Dan DePazzi. But I just provide a quick overview for the board. You can read some of the statistics that are being reported month to month, and you can see that we continue to be quite busy. Bench warrants issued by judges, we have quite a few for people failing to attend court. Again, and how many Crown briefs are being processed, you can get a feel for the volume of the work that's being processed through that area under specialized operations. Before I move to emergency communications, there are some statistics there, again, that I like to highlight before we move to the next section. And one of them is intimate partner violence investigations. I know with some of the public presentations that Greater Sudbury has done, those numbers, 141 in the month of November, we would obviously like to see that number be zero. And we are still doing a considerable amount of work in relations to intimate partner violence across all divisions. That includes uniform patrol operations, criminal investigations, and including through bail safety officer and through specialized operations. So you can see some of the volume of the work that's happening in that area. Again, a testament to the work being done in the officers under the leadership and command of Inspector Dan DePazzi. Property evidence control section. I know there was questions from Member Lougheed from last month that I'd like to address. There were some questions around firearms intake. The number for firearms intake this month is going to be 21. And when we look to dig deeper into what those numbers consist of, a lot of them, for the majority part, when you apply for a positions acquisitions license for the PAL license and you're involved in a criminal offense and involves violence, such as intimate partner investigations, which you can see is still continuing to be relatively high in Greater Sudbury. Then there is legislative authorities around that to seize firearms if you happen to be arrested for an intimate partner violence investigation. As well, there's several different types of reasons, and apparently there's a lot of amnesty programs where people in Greater Sudbury, if their grandfather dies or they have no use for the firearms, you don't just throw them in the garbage or put them in the trash. They have to be brought to a police facility so they can be safely disposed of. So just to quantify some of the information you were looking for there, Member Lougheed. And then I'll just take a pause to see if anybody has any questions before we move to the next section. Member
Lloyd.
First off, thank you, Deputy Chief, with regard to the firearms, because I actually circled that again. So good explanation. So thank you for that. I noticed that your quota for bike retrievals is the same as last month. You found 7 more.
Yes, and that's correct. And if I can expand through you, Chair, we have actually looked at, there was an initiative that was brought forward in 2022 with a company called Garage 529. And we have had a look at that initiative that was parked from 2023. And we've reopened that initiative and we're moving it forward. And we just received approval through the chief to go forward with that program. And what it is it's very much a community partnership with a third-party agency that works in partnership with the police service, as well as other, commercial, commercial businesses that are selling bikes. And what it enables the owner of a bike to do is register their bike with this program. And anybody can do it. They can do it through their cell phone. And what it does is it assigns like a serial number to every bike. So when they are recovered, that there is no doubt to who the owner is, and they can be returned to the rightful owner. And that has recently received approval, and that will be reported in the next board report when we start moving forward with that initiative.
Thank you, Deputy. I think that's an excellent idea. As somebody who bikes a lot, I think that's just wonderful. And again, it shows a partnership where we don't have to use sworn officers to be chasing bicycles, but we're improving, obviously, the security of bicycles in our community. So kudos for that. My other question was going to be under Andrew's report, but Deputy, you brought it up under Dan's report. So you mentioned the 141 IPV investigations. And Andrew's report recalls 264 calls. So I'm assuming they're obviously married, the two numbers. One is investigations, one is calls. And if memory serves me right, we're pretty consistent with regard to if I was doing an average between 250 and 260 calls a month, which I think you alluded to in your commentary is unacceptable. And it certainly speaks that in our community, we have that problem. I think at the last meeting, Matthew, when I was the acting chair, we asked that, in fact, a letter be sent by this board to encourage the Ford government to pass out at the second reading Bill 173. I did do a little research on that, and I understand the Ford government actually does want to expedite the bill, that in the February sitting, I guess if they are sitting, there was co-chairs, there was an NDP lady and a Tory lady, and they're not going to put the dog and pony show on the road. We're not going to have local meetings to be able to talk about this. So again, I'm not sure, Matthew, you sent the letter, but I would very much encourage our management team, the deputy, the chief, to send a letter to say the sooner they can pass 173, the better it is, because if it is declared an epidemic, for the record, we will be getting more resources with regard to shelters such as Cedar Place, such as protection, such as enforcement. So I very much think our board should be a leader in encouraging the passage of that bill as soon as possible. And I think, Matthew, we talked about that at the last meeting.
You're correct, Chair, Vice Chair. I do have a draft in the works. I just need to finalize it, and I'll get it to the board for approval, and we can send that.
I think it should be sent out this week, and I would encourage the deputy and the chief within their organizations to encourage that to be expedited as well.
Member Forte,
Just before we leave this topic,
speak into the mic, please, Krista.
Before we leave this topic, I'm always amazed at the workload of this bail safety officer. So that might be another informative presentation down the road to have the actual officer come in and provide some information.
Thank you. Yeah, just one myself, when it's with the bail compliance and warrant apprehension program. So we have offenders on compliance, on the compliance checklist. Is that just a number? Do we check on what's the process with that, Deputy?
We physically check.
physically check?
Yeah, so we have a team, have a grant. We also have a team of officers within specialized operations that go and check to make sure that bail compliance is being met. We also have several people who we know are not compliant and there is warrants out for their arrest. So instead of letting them, um, go about their day and the community, that we have a dedicated enforcement team of officers here at Greater Sudbury Police to ensure that those offenders are being held accountable for those crimes and those compliance issues.
Further to that, how often would we be checking on that compliance? Do you know, or?
Well, as the easy answer to that, Chair, is as often as we can. A lot of and we know, obviously in the province, bail compliance is an issue provincially. Of course, we have lots of violent offenders that are committing multiple serious crimes while on bail. So it is, it is quite a topic of public interest and public safety. And so we check as many offenders as we can that are on our bail compliance checks and who are out on warrants.
Just, again, the amount of time again required as our service has tasks to do. This is just another one that I'm sure is quite timely. So thank you for that, Deputy.
So if I might add through you, Chair Sizer, this board knows the bail safety dashboard we spoke about at the last meeting with the OPP created a dashboard in which now at least the province and services in the province are now feeding the same dashboard. So through a grant, we now have a police professional assigned. She's monitoring that, and we have a task force team, as Deputy Hiltz indicated. So that's the bail safety compliance checks. Now, Member Fortier asked about our bail safety officer. That bail safety officer is housed at the courthouse, which is different. Again, we get funding through the province for this officer, and it's ensuring that victims of IPV or sexual assault, or they're contacting the victims, advising of the bail conditions that the individual is being released on, and setting up safety planning and that kind of stuff. It's that extra checks and balance. Two totally different units and programs. So I just kind of wanted to verify, clarify that.
Okay,
just make
thank
sure.
you. All right, Deputy.
Thank you very much, Chair Sizer, through you. The next section we're going to tackle here is emergency communications, and Manager Andrea Savage. I don't think he's here today. You can see again, when we do these reports, we want to make sure that the Police Services Board, for the governance accountability piece, and the public understands the volume of calls that are coming through our communication center, which are each call is indicative of someone in Greater Sudbury who needs the police. So when you look at total calls, again, they're quite consistent from month to month. We're looking at just under 23,000 calls that our communication center is managing on a month-to-month basis. I think if you break that down, it's roughly, I think it's like 766, I think, per day. They do a tremendous job, our emergency communicators. So again, to acknowledge the hard work that they're doing. A very important part of that total call volume are just the 911 calls. Those are just under the 6,000 mark at 5,680. And again, like that's an upwards of about 190, 200 calls per day. And within those calls, we have priority ones, which are emergent situations where our officers are going, lights and sirens, and that are quite emergency calls, a lot of times with our emergency partners. So again, those numbers are there for the board and for the public to view, to see what kind of volume that your police agency and your police service is managing on a month-to-month basis. The one thing that I know from boards past is just the ambulance assist. We're still sitting at roughly 114 per month. And I just want to assure the board that the Greater Sudbury Police is working with our with tri-services within Greater Sudbury, which we call pre-hospital care providers, police, fire, and paramedic. and dealing with first point of patient care through those tri-services that we do meet regularly. And we are supporting our partners in the community to come up with training initiatives and things to support the work that they're doing in the community to bring that number down. And that work is continuing. The rest of the report is for you to view. The only thing that I would mention before we switch to patrol operations is just that, NG 911, I know we've heard a lot about it in the media that, that's going to have a tremendous impact on policing as we move from analog to digital 911 services, and that we have moved into the preliminary testing stages with and updated software just to ensure that compliance by March 2025. So we are continuing to do that work. Is there any questions from the board?
Member Poland?
Just a quick comment. Thanks, Deputy Chief. I've heard both you and the chief talk that police is a number that people know to call. And I continue to be staggered. I think as a board, we continue to be staggered by the volume of calls that the center is seeing. And it's an incredibly important role overall and part of the service. So please extend on behalf of me, and I think the board will echo this, please extend our thanks to that team for the incredibly important work that they do. And I know we're taking good care of them.
Through you, Chair. Thank you so much, Member Poland and the board, for those supportive remarks. Our communications team do an absolutely tremendous job. And I often say, no wheel turns, no boot hits the ground unless it goes through our communication center. And they truly do lead the organization in deploying resources and resources management. And that is really is tightly tied to service delivery efforts. So thank you for that. We're going to move on to patrol operations, and I'd like to acknowledge Chris Brown. He's an inspector of patrol operations. He is in the room today. And again, I think it's important for me to mention as a deputy chief that, I am here as a representative operations. So all the work that I'm speaking to month is really, it's many people are doing lots of hard work out on our community that are really embodied in the information and the statistics on these pages. So Chris Brown, he has done a tremendous job in frontline patrol operations. He does oversee the police community response unit, and I'm going to highlight that just as we get through this portion of the report, and just to say that we do have a great team of people that are supporting frontline work and having those calls diverted away from our front line, those low threshold calls. And it's the police community response unit that we call the PCRC that has those officers that are maybe not deployable to frontline due to various issues, but they're still making an enormous contribution in completing and helping move us through those low threshold calls. You can see that in the month of November, we've through emergency communications that we had over 200 calls triaged to the PCRC. And they get dispatched then for further investigation and follow-up. And again, you can see those are low threshold calls, which we get quite a few of, which are the thefts and mischiefs. If you look at the COP logic as well, we're seeing a lot of online reporting. And I'd just like to speak to some of the notes and remarks made in last month's board meeting to just speak to that. We do have a tremendous program here at Greater Sudbury Police. We have officers that are staffing this area, the police service, that are managing a significant amount of calls that are being diverted from our front line, which is very, very important to be triaged appropriately, and that our frontline officers are their time is reserved for those priority ones and those more urgent calls for service. And they do an excess of over 5,000 calls a year. So I want to make sure that that portion of patrol ops gets the attention, the recognition that it deserves, and that I can comment that the model that has been stood up here at Greater Sudbury Police Service has been a model that has been seen as taking the lead in the province. We've had several police agencies come and visit us at Greater Sudbury to actually see what that that area looks like and how we're managing that work. And there's other agencies throughout the province looking to stand that up in their services as well. So they do a tremendous amount of work. So when we do receive cop logic, when members of the public do submit cop logic reports, although you might not see an officer because you're submitting those reports online, we have a tremendous team of fantastic individuals who are managing that on the back end and managing those calls. So as we move on, we're going to move to frontline operations, and you can see I'm not going to read through all of this, but you can see that we are still managing fairly consistent call volume in terms of priority 1s and 2s and social disorders calls in the greater Sudbury community. And some of, and also too, you can see some of the noteworthy events that were highlighted by Inspector Brown are really those high level priority 1 calls that our men and women are answering the call for service and really doing, again, tremendous work in emergency situations, many times with violence and people that don't want to stop for police, where sometimes they can be injured and some of our equipment can be damaged, and we're still forging through and getting the job done. So again, I'm just going to pause here. If there's anybody that has any questions about any of the information or the data contained in this document.
Well, seeing or hearing none, I guess we can continue.
Thank you very much, Chair Sizer. I'm going to move to integrated operations. Integrated operations, again, to remind the board, we do have a new inspector to that area. Bob Norman is heading up the area integrated operations as Mark Brunette is now the executive officer chief. So integrated operations does manage the traffic management unit, and which is tremendously important because we all know through the community survey done in 2022, we had traffic safety. The community was clear in saying that traffic safety was a number 2 community concern. So if you look, there is a fantastic graph, and I always say, like, a picture is 1,000 words, to just show what type of enforcement that Greater Sudbury is doing. Again, we understand the critical public, that traffic safety is a critical public issue, and impacts physical, financial, and really social well-being in our community, and ensuring that our roads are safe. So, that graph shows exactly how much work we're doing and how much enforcement that we're doing in terms of tickets, doing alcohol screening. We got enforcement through alcohol, drugs, over 80 milligrams, and stunt driving. And all of those criteria do fall under the traffic management unit. And again, lots of tremendous work being done by the officers that are out there on the roads, pulling over drivers and enforcing the rules of the road. So some additional statistics as we get through integrated operations, you can see that we are continue to be engaged in the RIDE program, which is Reduce Impaired Driving Everywhere, and also referred to as the Festive Ride program. And month to month, but especially during the holiday season, I can assure the board and I can assure the Greater Sudbury public that our officers will be out there on the roads again this holiday season, pulling over drivers and looking for impaired drivers, and that's by drug and alcohol. So far in November, we've done a tremendous amount of work to ensure, again, that our streets are safe and that we're detecting impaired drivers. We've stopped close to 1,000 cars in Greater Sudbury. So again, we provide these stats to assure the public that we are doing our job, and we do take our job seriously in making our roads safe. So in terms of enforcement, you can see the charges that were laid, how many over 80 charges, and warrants, And so there's a lot of work that goes into pulling cars and getting into those cars and figuring out if they're impaired drivers. And then on that, as an operational deputy, I have gone to and done ride-alongs and done been out there with our officers pulling over cars to detect for impaired driving. And I can tell you, it's amazing how much the Sudbury public supports our work in this area. Lots of positive comments, and we will continue to do that throughout the holiday season. The only other noteworthy item that I'd like to just bring to the attention of the board and the public is just some of the work that is being done by our police liaison team. We refer to it as the PL team. If you refer to the page 43 at the bottom, the police liaison team is a very special team of people that are helping us navigate some of the strikes and protests that happen within our jurisdiction, within our city. And we do currently have a postal strike, and just so that that's recognized, that we do have people that are specially trained that are attending those events and ensuring that there's great relationships and everybody understands the rules of strikes and protests. So again, wanted to make sure that that was highlighted there. And you can see from 32 proactive and preventative engagements, with Canada Post, and stemming from the ongoing labor dispute that looks like it will continue into Christmas. Does the board have any questions in regards to any of the material?
Through you,
Rely.
Chair, to the deputy. First off, I'd like to, obviously, Acting Deputy Mark will know there's questions coming, so God bless you, Inspector Bob Norman, because I really appreciated this chart. So I did my math on the chart, Deputy. So to your point about 1,000 checks, it's 997. So I did the addition on the impaired driving, 80+ charges, Warren Ranger. So if you add that up, it comes to 13. So if you take 13 into 997, that's a 1.3 percentage that for the 1,000 you check, 1.3% people have done something with alcohol. Perhaps they're not over the limit, but you've given them warnings. So the question, God bless you, Mark, you know where this question is going. It's your turn now, Bob. In terms of the rest of the world, is 1.3 a good number? Because we get these huge numbers, we hear about all these calls we get, but my question is 1.3% charges compared to North Bay, Cornwall, London, Windsor is 1.3, because 997 really doesn't mean a lot. So let's say it was 2,000 instead of 987. If we're still at 1.3, that's a good number. And if we're doing 500 and 1.3, that's a good number. If the benchmark is 1.3 for every time you stop X number of cars, then we're in the game. If 1.3 and another jurisdiction says, oh, crappers, no, we have 32, so we got more drunks in Cornwall than we do in Sudbury. So I'd like to know what our comparative is with regard to the number of cars we stop with regard to drunk driving in Sudbury. Sorry, Deputy, I got to go through you.
Sorry, that question is through the chief or through the chair.
Well, I see Inspector Norman is prepared to answer this question. I'm just going to add my 2 cents on this through you, Chair Sizer. I would suggest it's all relative, and I think we've had this discussion, right? If we stop 997, 0 is what we'd like to see. 0 is the number. So I don't know, and the inspectors might be able to comment on this, but gathering that data, I don't know what Cornwall or North Bay are stopping. I don't know if they give those stats out. So I don't know if we're able to provide that information. Ideally, and the other thing is, we've said, and we see through a traffic stop through I don't know who the constable was, Inspector Brown, but the drugs seized, So lots of our impaireds are actually through, this is just the traffic information, but lots of our impaired stats are through just random patrols, right? So I'm driving up Notre Dame, I see a car driving in front of me that's weaving. I stop that vehicle. So I think this is just through our festive ride. So again, is 1.3 of the total service? Is it simply for the festive ride? And what are we actually comparing to in other jurisdictions? So Inspector Norm, if you have anything you want to add to that?
I do, through you, Chair. Member Lahi, you're bringing up great data. Your data is accurate. 1.3 is our local number today. Make no mistake about it, the festive ride launch that happened November 14th, I made it unequivocally clear to the community that 0 is our number. So 0 is our baseline. Impaired driving is a choice. It's a criminal consequence that somebody chooses, or a criminal act that somebody chooses to make. For us to compare the data today to what happened in Cornwall yesterday or the day before, it's unfair because our ride initiatives are driven by operational demands. And we know that policing, although the job itself is the same in other jurisdictions, the demands and the time of those demands are change. So 0 is our number. Where I'd like to be and where our service and our community would like to be is 0. But it takes everybody to contribute to that. 1.3 is our number today. I can guarantee you with the increase of our ride campaigns and initiatives over the next month, you're going to see that number probably climb. So I don't want to use 1.3 as a comparator for anybody, and nor will I take another jurisdiction. And I do not feel it appropriate to compare our jurisdiction to another jurisdiction. 0 should be our number.
Chair, kudos to you, Inspector Norman. That I agree totally with the 0. And all of you in this room know this is one of my concerns with regard to policing in our community, because drunk driving is totally unnecessary. And likely the person in this room that understands the consequences of drunk driving is me better than anybody else. Because when it kills somebody that's just an innocent person, and we can talk about the Hancock family, we can talk about a whole lot of other people, that all they're doing is driving on the road. As I was driving on Monday from Toronto and some guy's drunk and causes my death or causes somebody I love to die, 0 is the only acceptable number. But my point always has been, Inspector Norman, I am old and decrepit. I can remember when smelt fishing, it was macho to get drunk smelt fishing and then drive home. And inevitably through my funeral homes, we buried drunk drivers that went smelt fishing. Well, because of the new impaired driving rules, I can't remember the last guy we had an accident that died from smelt fishing. So I know the laws work. My question is, the more we check, if 1.3 is acceptable, but you're going to tell me next year, guess what, Jerry, it's going to be 1.1. And we now have an initiative to drive it down to the 0, then I'm going to support you at 1,000%, Bob, because I do believe there's going to be more drinking because of Christmas parties. But if they're going to take that, I'll call it the ride program, where wonderful Leslie Green gets you a ride home, or you're going to be able to figure out another way to get home, well, then we're getting the message through. So the fact that we'd even acknowledge it might be higher, we're likely failing in the message. So I'd really like to be able to stress at our meetings, 1.3 isn't good enough. We're looking for 1.12 and then 1.1 and then 1. We want it going in the other direction. So I support what you said. 0 is what we should be looking for. This is the first time in these reports, and you know what I'm talking about, Mark. This is the first time I could take a comparative and say it was 997, 13 charges, it's 1.3. Now I have something to talk about. So I would really encourage you to continue the 0 argument, because that's the only acceptable argument. And if anybody wants to argue me on that, come in my office and sit down with people who shouldn't be in my office only because some jerk got drunk and killed somebody they loved. So absolutely, I'm on side with that.
Agreed.
Thank you. Anything further? Member Lefebvre?
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. Just at page 10, I'm going to go back a bit, the emergency communications data that was provided to us on the ambulance assist. I know at our, when Chief Cunningham presented that here at the City Council for the budget, a question was asked by, I believe, by Councillor Lapierre, saying, what are we at with respect to EMS assist from police? And you indicated that the number was up over 400%. So as I look at that data that you provided us, we're looking at 100 and so there's one call that was to gain entry, certainly assisting somebody to gain entry to a residence. There's 30 medical alarms, so we needed the police to certainly support the EMS as well. Then there's an other category, 114. Can you explain kind of what is the other, and then I'll have follow-up questions from there.
Yeah, for sure. Through you, Chair Sizer. You know, as I indicated at the budget presentation, unfortunately, in Deputy Hiltz, you know, our tri-services. So our EMS partners are seeing an increase, and so is our emergency department partners, an increase in violence, right? Combative individuals that they're dealing with at the roadside. So these other could be somewhat of that. You know, they've gone to an overdose, you know, downtown, and the individual they're dealing with is assaultive or combative. So they're asking for, you know, our resources. Chief Nichols, I know he stepped in at that meeting and kind of gave an overview there. So through, I believe now the province, and we had offered through Gino St. Jean, which is one of their lead trainers out at LEL, to work with our training team and some de-escalation. And you know, I know the education system is doing it. I know nurses are doing it. Just dealing with a population that sometimes are non-compliant. So we're assisting EMS through Deputy Hiltz, as well as fire, I believe, in doing some de-escalation training. So potentially they're not calling us as often, but unfortunately, like I said, there is an increase in violence. You saw with our presentation that night, assault police is up, you know, substantially. So it's unfortunate. It's a society in which, you know, we're dealing with at this point, but we're definitely having open dialogue with our EMS partners as well as HSN partners. They've increased their security in the ED. So they're not calling us as much, but we'll continue to hopefully see that number go down.
Okay, so follow-up, Chair. Do we have an estimate of how much time, again, 114 calls, is that an hour each? Or is that 3 to 4 hours when we do these assists? I know it depends, but it'd be interesting to see the amount of time. It's, 'cause, that number shows us certainly the amount of calls that we're assisting, but if it's 100 hours or if it's 20 hours each, I don't like, again, you know what I mean? Like, what are we looking at as amount of time that our services are supportive of other services?
Yeah, through you, Chair Sizer and Deputy Hiltz, you can jump in on this after. So, you know, on this one for the last month, we can go and do a deep dive. Again, it would depend on the call. It may be that we actually get there and the individual is cleared by EMS, but now we have an assault charge and now we've made an arrest. So, you know, to sometimes break down those calls, and, you know, Nathan Dokis is here. And as we come into, you'll see on the next page, this nice solution software, this board approved. We're launching this in January. And what it's going to do is really give us some data and analysis on our calls coming in, how long our call takers are on the phone, how long, you know, officers are spending on calls. We're going to be able to gather information a little bit better. I know Andrea Savage is excited about this software because we're going to be able to provide this a little more. So to your point, it is variable, just depends. We could be there, and by the time we get there, they're restrained on the gurney and off they go, and it's a quick call. Or again, depending, we might actually, you know, take control of this individual. Now they're under arrest. Now we're at the station, and it's actually a call for service for us. So it definitely is a lot of variables to that. And I don't know if you want to add anything.
Thank you, Chief. No, you covered just that we weren't prepared or in a place where we can pull that type of data, but we will be very shortly. And just to reassure the board and the public that we have very close relationships, obviously, with paramedic and fire. We meet with them regularly. It's been identified an issue, and we're mutually exploring options because in the end, it's a shared responsibility, and the customer client base is the same people. It's not different for fire or police or paramedic. So trying to find how we can share our expertise together to looking at ways to bring that number down.
Thank you. And maybe one last one, Mr. Chair. So on the other, again, category, the 114, are those 114 different individuals, or are those 20 individuals 5 times? If you can get that data as well, because that to me paints a picture of what we're struggling with. And if it is 114 different individuals in the month, but I think that data, if we have it, that'd be great to know.
For sure. And through you, Chair Sizer, we can definitely get that data. Unfortunately, we're seeing repeat, and we know through the rapid mobilization table where we bring those individuals who are at acute elevated risk. We're finally getting them to the table because, again, we have dealt with them sometimes 30 times in a month. There's the same individual. So this 114, again, we could do a deep dive on that. To your point, Member Lefebvre, one individual could have been, 30 times, but we'll get that information and bring it back to the board in January.
Go ahead, Deputy.
Thank you, Chief, and through you, Chair. Just to make a quick comment, so there are a considerable amount of repeats that are using public services. There's they call them like $1 million Murrays. It means that they really do cost a lot of money for three services to be, supporting them in the community. And so this is like a power few where there is a very small percentage of people who routinely are using public services such as police, fire, and paramedic. And that's a whole other community level conversation, which we know that we're having, at the mayoral level and obviously at the city level with client navigation. It's all tied very closely.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, and if you don't mind, I'm just going to add for this board to know, as well as the command staff team, through your other portfolio as our mayor, we've had lots of discussions about those wraparound services. So unfortunately, what sometimes happens is EMS calls us. They've had somebody, this scenario I'll give, overdose, and they call us. They're combative. We help them, we assist. They go to the ED. The ED provides medical care. Simply that. And our officer is on patrol later that afternoon, and the individual that they dealt with that morning is back out on the street. So we really need to come together, service delivery, and look at wraparound services, right? So those repeat individuals, we actually get them to a place where they are, receiving services that they require. So they're no longer, using emergency services on the daily.
Member Lougheed.
Just following up a little bit, previous life on this board, is that WET program still going, Chief? A WET program? They had a program where they actually gave some of the folks that were having crises, we diverted them out of the system, and I thought it was the old police building, and they actually gave them alcohol in small amounts so they would stay out of the crises. And it was a program. Dr. Marshall was one of the people. Dr. Marsh was one of the people that was involved with that. And there was a great controversy about us actually giving alcohol to people that were in crises. But we felt if we gave them clean alcohol, if there's such a thing, as opposed to some of the toxins they were drinking, they wouldn't be going to the emerge as much. And then Chief Elsner, and at that time, Louise Paquette was the Lynn CEO, and they worked with mental health to actually divert people out of the emergency into this program, because I think, to the mayor's question, some individuals were very expensive to the taxpayer with regard to all the resources they were using. So they found it better to try to meet them with their needs and to kind of get them at least under control. And I guess my question is that program still in existence? And if so, how many people go through that program? Because I think it really speaks to the mayor's question.
Yeah, through you, Chair Sizer. I'm not sure. I do actually remember that program. I'm not sure if it's still in effect. I don't know. Any of the commanders know? No, we'll definitely look at that.
No, thank you, Chief, and through you, Chair. I'm not aware of any program that any of our officers are running into, the WET program, but I do remember something quite a number of years back, and it was quite controversial. I think that some of these repeat ambulance assist, that are violent. People in our community is closely tied to a lot of different social issues, that we're trying to tackle: the community safety, well-being table, as well as, client navigation initiatives in accessing services, and that, and that this is closely tied to that. And I do know a very informative article just to share with the board that I do remember. I do remember that WET program, but I do remember something through the New Yorker magazine. I think it's on the internet. It's called $1 Million Murray. And it really paints a very clear picture of the costs of people revolving through, public services like police, fire, paramedic. Very, very informative.
Nick, I just, I have, as much as Member Lougheed likes to spend time on not spend time, but get information on the impaired driving, I'm looking at, again, the stunt driving. I'm always amazed, 8 stunt driving occurrences in the month of November. And I just wonder, your deputy, if we have any profiles of what those, are they young people out joyriding, or are they just people not paying attention and going through, I don't know, yeah, it's what, 40 kilometers an hour over equals a stunt driving charge? So can anybody answer on that one, Just curious.
Through you, Chair. Stunt driving charges, there's a variety of criteria for stunt driving. It can be at school zones in excess of 40. There could be motorcycles doing wheelies. There's all sorts of different criteria that fall into stunt driving charges. But again, like, we're very aware of the critical importance of traffic safety as a public safety issue. It clearly defined in our 2022 community survey. And 8 stunt driving charges. Again, it is quite high, and it's just speaks to really irresponsible. Irresponsible drivers really compromising the safety of our roads for all Sudburyans. So, like the impaired, we would like to have that at 0, and 8 is far too much.
Thank you.
No other questions?
No, anything further? Proceed.
Okay, through you, Chair, we're going to be moving to criminal investigations. Inspector Jerry Wilmot could not be present here today, but again, I'm speaking to work of his team under his leadership. We're going to deal with, they're dealing in criminal investigations, with a significant amount of, complex investigations. And there's several that are highlighted here in this report, and we're not going to go through them verbatim. But we're gonna speak to, there are some really violent events happening in our city. And just very, very, grateful that when patrol ops responds to that and their investigative piece, there's a back end investigative piece once people are arrested and those situations are made safe, that, there is an investigative component that Jerry and his team do take care of. And if you look, we do have an attempted murder. 2 people were arrested for the shooting at the grocery store, and that happened on October 31st. And, these types of situations, and I mean, there are other, items in terms of events happening in our community, like the stabbing in Chelmsford, and you look at some of the other events that are happening. But, sometimes you know, these events happen, these incidents happen, and the people involved are known to each other. You know, um, in this particular one here, this attempted murder after a shooting at a grocery store, I gotta tell you, that's considerable risk to our community. I've been in that grocery store, and it's a very, very popular store in our community, and we have people shooting at other people in a public place. And, we understand that gives our community great concern, as it does us in, being providers of public safety. And so when we look at this particular call, we had 2 individuals approaching a man in a self checkout, and that person was shot. So, fortunately, that person didn't die. But I think that I have to say, it really is to that very, very quick call response that we are getting, which is a very high quality service, prudent, and is a testament to why it's so important to have PCRC and call diversion and making sure our officers are free to respond to very serious violence offenses in our community. And it was our uniformed frontline officers who responded to that call, and they were able to, attend a residence on Flower Mill and arrest an individual. So, as well, we had some of our special services, such as our canine resources and assets, were deployed that helped us obviously arrest that person. And I think that's really important, that we are offering a very high quality emergency service, that we're having violent, incidents happen in our community that create a considerable amount of risk, that we do answer that call for service. That individual was a 17-year-old young man. He's been charged with several offenses. You can read there, one of them being attempted murder. And through the investigation of that person, a second individual was also arrested and held accountable. So, again, we do believe it's a targeted incident, but again, we're very alive to the fact that although it's a targeted incident, it's happening in a public place, which is very concerning. And again, we're doing everything we can here at Greater Sudbury Police Service to track those offenders down and bring them to justice. One of the other things is that I'd like to highlight of some of the events that are happening in the city of Greater Sudbury is just it's Christmas time, it's holiday season. This is a time when we see usually thefts going up and frauds. There was a 21-year-old man arrested for fraud over 5,000, but a particular concern is that he was impersonating a police officer. So this is very important to highlight at this time of year, as we do see an increase in violence offenses relating to crime and frauds. And so I think this is a really great example for us to highlight this month, so that we can ensure that the public is aware that there are people out there who are personating public officials such as police officer. And in this particular instance, a member of our community handed over $20,000. $20,000 is a considerable amount of money. Usually they target vulnerable public, such as the elderly. We're very, very happy to report that the offender in this particular case got greedy. So once they were able to get $20,000, and they were saying they were part of an undercover RCMP operation, and that they needed the money for part of an investigation. That can be really scary to people, especially too if you're an elderly person. Luckily, this person had some family members that they called to intervene. And when, the offenders called back to squeeze another $10,000 from this victim, that the police were poised and ready. We were able to go to where the meeting spot was, and we were able to intervene on their behalf. So again, really successful, result, because we were alerted in time, and we were able to arrest and hold a 21-year-old man from Southern Ontario responsible for that significant fraud, and monies returned to the victim. So on that note, I just wanted to make sure, as I know that's a public meeting, that we are making sure that we're asking our community members to be very proactive this time of year, and that we're having conversations with vulnerable people and loved ones, and that they understand how to protect themselves. And as a reminder, we have police resources available to you if you feel that it's in doubt, and you do not ever have to feel pressured to part with large sums of money. Probably deserves some checks and balances to happen before that happens. Just to highlight some other items, we participate in joint forces operations continually throughout the year, and we had a successful joint forces operation that was able to locate a young missing woman who had been a missing person quite a number of times. and she was found and found to be under the control of a 33-year-old male who was arrested and brought to justice. Again, another multi-jurisdictional investigation regards to a fail to stop and possession of stolen property. And this will be really the one of the last ones I'll really highlight. For criminal investigation section. And I think that these items in the criminal investigation section do tie into patrol operations. And in this particular one, we had a U-Haul van that failed to stop for police. That driver, that U-Haul van, did crash into some of our officers, cause damage, and as well, we were able to track him and another vehicle down. And they had about $20,000 worth of stolen power tools. And so, they wanted to avoid detection and capture by police. And so, when you look at the charges in this particular call, we have cruisers that are damaged. We have people trying to evade capture from police. We've got flight from police officer ×2. We've got dangerous operations of a motor vehicle, failing to stop for police. But again, to speak to some of the violence we're experiencing in our community, we have assault police officer ×4. So there are people out there who are violent and do not want to be arrested to police. So again, as I do when I go through some of the activity and police activity and events and work that we're doing out there, is just to speak to the great men and women that are answering that call for service in our community, that are taking that on, and again, doing tremendous work. Does anybody have any questions?
No, appears not.
Thank you very much, Chair. That brings me to the end of the Chief's report for operations.
Thank you, Deputy Hills. I think now at this point in time, is there around the room, is there any new business? Member Lougheed?
Well, actually, picking up on your kickoff, and we have obviously the Chiefs Awards on an annual basis. And I noticed at your kickoff that you resurrected the three mothers. His Inspector DePace left, I think so, eh? So I think it was called Impact 611. Am I correct on that? Does somebody remember? Sorry? 621, that's correct. So they formed under the help of Ted Callahan and Bela Ravi, and they made enormous presentations in the community to the high schools, to community groups, etc. In fact, they actually got some funding, I think, from Cooperative Insurance, with trying to give people understanding about parties at holiday time. These three mothers did exceptional work. Dan was actually one of the first police liaisons that was with this particular organization, because I was involved with it at that time as well. I would strongly suggest, Chief, because you did use it for your kickoff, I think, Inspector Norman, they were there and they certainly had a presence, that in your chief, we're always looking for people receiving these awards. Those three mothers have never received the award. And I would strongly suggest, knowing that they have shut down Impact 621 and it's no longer a functioning nonprofit CRA organization, that we would make sure at the next set of Chiefs Awards that these three women would be acknowledged for the legacy they're leaving on their community, because they have done outstanding work. And the trouble when people retire and old people like I die, everybody kind of forgets what they did. And I think that their legacy needs to be acknowledged.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. Seeing nothing further, I have a motion to adjourn. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you very much, everybody.